So, we're not going to be talking about this movie, at least not yet. But we might wind up talking about this obsession. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out the introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it's going to give you a sense of what we do here at the Horror Movie Syllabus, which is, in short, to look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then to pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is our Doctorate Level series. This is where we revisit a subgenre that we've already talked about before, something we've already covered, and we pick a new 4th Doctorate Level selection. Another movie that's maybe a little more deeper cut, or a little bit more lesser known, or a little bit more niche, or maybe just something that I like a lot, or whatever, something that we just missed the first time around when we talked about the particular subgenre. And the particular subgenre that we're talking about today is the obsession subgenre. And in our original obsession video, we talked a little bit about how obsession really kind of overlaps with a lot of other subgenres, because a lot of other subgenres like slashers and things like that, mystery, whatever, will have an obsession aspect to them. There will be some aspect of obsession in these other movies. So when we were talking about obsession as a subgenre into itself, what we wanted to focus on were movies where the antagonist was obsessed, or that the focus on the antagonist was on the obsession of that antagonist. So kind of putting the obsession front and center, if you will, in these movies to maybe kind of distinguish them a little bit more from what we've seen in terms of obsession in other subgenres. And honestly, I mentioned this in the previous video too, I tend to find these movies kind of fun. Like crazy obsession stuff tends to tickle my funny bone a little bit. I just enjoy these kind of movies. They're not usually that heavy to me. Sometimes there's exceptions, of course, but for the most part, the movies aren't too heavy for me. They're mostly pretty enjoyable, a little popcorn, funny kind of stuff. So I really enjoy these kind of movies. So I was really happy to dig in and get into another Doctorate Level one to add to the conversation. But before we do that, let me go ahead and recap for those of you who didn't see it, what we talked about in the previous video right now. The first obsession horror movie that we talked about in the previous video was Single White Female. And Single White Female is a really, really fun movie. At least I think it's a lot of fun. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who thinks that way. Even though the movie is pretty silly, it's pretty ridiculous. The premise of the movie is a little bit out there, a little bit ludicrous, but has become something of kind of a pop culture reference. I actually talked about how I like to use Single White Female to talk about people who are copying other people. I don't think I'm the only one that does that. I think that's actually kind of a thing. I don't think I invented that or anything like that. But I did talk about how the movie is fun, partly because the actors in it are really good. It's a trashy movie, admittedly, but I take it a little bit more seriously because the quality of the actors in it are very, very good. And Jennifer Jason Leigh and Bridget Fonda being the ones I'm speaking about. It's just a movie that I love. It's one that I had to put on the syllabus because it's something that I enjoyed quite a bit and something that I enjoy revisiting. And it feels like one that doesn't get its flowers anymore. It feels like one that people, like younger people, modern audiences, don't really know about as much. And I feel like it deserves to be known about. So of course I was going to shine a light on it and talk about it. And I'm happy to kind of remind everybody about it right now. And the next obsession horror movie we talked about was Fatal Attraction. And we talked a bit about how this movie was a cultural phenomenon. When it came out, it was just like a huge hit. Everybody was talking about it. It really kind of was a part of the cultural zeitgeist. And it was for good reason, because it was a really well-made movie with a really strong pedigree. You know, it had Adrian Lyne as the director, it had Michael Douglas, Glenn Close. It was really like quality A-list talent making what is kind of a B-list type movie. It's kind of a B movie, but it is really well done. I mean, so well done that it got Oscar nominations. Glenn Close got an Oscar nomination for this, a well-deserved one, because her performance is fantastic. And it admittedly maybe hasn't aged super well in the intervening years. Some of the ways of its takes on things like mental health and on femininity and feminism maybe hasn't aged super well, but it's still quite the thriller. It really got into the skin of everybody, in America at least, back when it came out. And I think it still could get on the skin under most men, at least, at this day and age. Really excellent movie. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. And the last obsession horror movie that we talked about was Misery. And I posited in the video that Misery might be the best Stephen King adaptation on screen. Not the best Stephen King movie, because I'd still say that's The Shining, but the best one adapting his book and it being a really good book, because it really is. And again, we've got another movie where you could maybe make an argument that was kind of a little bit more of a B-level movie if it wasn't for the quality of the actors, namely James Caan doing something a little bit different, playing a weaker character or a weekend character rather than the tough guy he's known for. But especially Kathy Bates and her Academy Award winning performance, well deserved, as Annie Wilkes. Just an incredible, chilling roller coaster ride of a performance that really makes the movie. It's the central thing about the movie that is so great. But honestly, it's just a great story too. The book is a really good book, and it's really done well here. Rob Reiner, we gave him his props in the previous video, does a really great job of keeping the tension in this movie, and the dread in this movie ratchet up high, but also sprinkling in horror and humor, and it just really brings this movie together with some great performances, some really excellent, solid directing. A must-see, frankly, for any Stephen King fan, and really for any horror fan. If you haven't seen it, obviously, you need to see this one. So those are the movies that we talked about in our previous video about Obsession Horror Movie, but now it's time for a doctorate level selection. Okay, the doctorate level selection for our obsession horror subgenre is Pi. And Pi came out in 1998 and was written and directed by first-time director Darren Aronofsky. It was his feature film debut. And we've talked about Aronofsky before on the channel. I'm a big Aronofsky fan. I really like his movies. But we talked about Mother. We talked about Black Swan. These movies that are kind of, horror, but also maybe just more like horror adjacent. And we're going to kind of be saying the same thing about Pi here too. But Pi is a directorial debut and one that I had been wanting to talk about on the channel for a little bit of time now. So now is the chance for me to finally get a chance to do that. Now, if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a mathematician who's dealing with some mental health issues, and he lives by himself in an apartment in New York. And he's starting to become obsessed with the idea of this number that maybe holds the key to the universe. He's seeing all these patterns in nature, and he's determined to figure out what it means. He's convinced that it means something, and he starts getting wrapped up in numerology, and he starts coming across all these other people who the government or private interests, religious interests, and they all want to know what he knows, and hijinks start to abound. I'm going to go ahead and stop there so as not to spoil the movie for you. But right off the bat, what we're talking about is a really strong stunner of a debut by Aronofsky. The movie, just from the look alone, and you can see it in the trailer, it just looks like something else. Now, admittedly, this is the late 90s, so you've kind of got that art house indie thing going on at the time period. It's not unusual to see things in black and white. Not unusual to see these kind of weird art house films, these really bizarre, kind of obtuse subject matters. But there's something about Pi that was a little different. I think it's very evident right off the bat. First of all, you've got this high contrast black and white. It's something about the way it's kind of really bright and dark, and like it just doesn't look like a regular black and white movie. And it's got this 16 millimeter film and the grainy look to it. And it's all shot guerrilla style, right? They didn't have any money. It's a very low budget movie. I think it was like 130 grand, something like that. And so they're filming like on the New York subway and stuff like that at night, like no permits, filming, just, get it done quickly. And it's got that kind of energy of like somebody who just loves film and wants to make film and is going to bend or break the rules to get it made. And you can feel it. It comes through. It comes through right away. And the look really works for the subject matter, right? It's got these themes on there. It's kind of like these mathematical themes. Like the theme of math, right, is the core central theme of the movie. And, math is kind of binary in nature, right? And so the black and the white kind of like highlights that binary aspect of it. But then there's also shades of gray as you get into the numerology themes in the movie, like the idea of like what do numbers mean and how people derive meaning from them. And then there's all this stuff about religion in the movie and how religion ties into math and numerology and how people have their different interests and what they want to kind of prove using numbers. And then, of course, there's the mental health aspects of this, the mental health degradation of the main character and what he's going through. And he's kind of schizophrenic, maybe, and definitely paranoid. And he's your main narrator, right? He's literally the person you're following, and he's literally talking to you in narration. And it really is, it's not so much that he's the unreliable narrator, but it puts you in his place of like not being completely clear or sure what's real and what's imaginary. And it really is ratcheting up the tension in this movie in a way that makes it feel very intense. Like is this movie horror? That's the thing, the question a lot of people would have is like, does it really count as horror? And like, even if you look at like Wikipedia and stuff like that, they don't call it horror. They tend to call it psychological thriller, which is probably fair. But I feel like as the movie goes on, it gets progressively more nightmarish, more insane, more disturbing. It really kind of goes down this path of craziness that is indicative of the mental state of the main character, but also just kind of like an experiment in like insanity in filmmaking. The energy in this film is pretty impressive. It is a really impressive directorial debut. The energy in this movie is top notch. The script is really fascinating. More on that in a second. The camera work, the cinematography, like I said, the use of light and dark in this movie is really fascinating. The music, which is done by a friend of Aronofsky's, is really just engaging and ratcheting up that tension. It's a very stylish movie. It's no surprise to see why film festivals were really interested in this, giving it awards. It had like, it was kind of a sensation in the film festival circus. It's really easy to understand why. It's got that kind of energy to it. And then the story is really fascinating. The script is really fascinating. It's a dense, obtuse script. I'm not going to lie to you. The math in this is not dumbed down for you. You are expected to just keep up. And if you're a mathematician, it might be interesting to know like how solid the math is in this movie, but it's not really concerned with you knowing that. It's not even trying to teach you that. You just need to keep up. And I'll be honest with you, I did. I'm not a math major by any stretch of imagination. I don't really like math at all. But the math in this movie is pretty interesting to me. I'll be honest with you on that. I got drawn into the math on it because I think the movie makes it just accessible enough to pique your curiosity and make you kind of get engaged with it, even if you're not following it, even if you don't know what the hell a Fibonacci sequence is, you're still going to be able to roll with this movie because you understand the tension with it and you understand everybody's interest in it. And that's working really well in this movie. The way that they just kind of let you not know what they're talking about, unless you're a mathematician, and yet you can still understand the importance of it, the intensity of it, the danger of it. That's all direction. That's Aronofsky. He did write the script too, but it really comes through the direction. On the page, I'm not sure how he would actually sell this movie. In fact, I don't think it is. It's basically an indie film, right? But he did manage to make it incredibly compelling. It draws you in right away. It really does grab you, and it doesn't really let go of you. The ending of this movie is pretty insane. It really does go some crazy places, and I do love it. And I do like the ambiguity of some of it too. But what I like the most is that it's trying to give you something that's kind of an in-depth exploration of math and religion or faith, and kind of like exploring a little bit of the nexus or the intersection of those two ideas, while at the same time not getting bogged down in that at all, and just kind of like throwing it out there and letting you kind of like let your brain just kind of work on that in the background while you stay on the thrills of the main protagonist and trying to escape from things and stuff like that. It's a really interesting idea. I'm not a super, like I said, I'm not into math. I'm not really into numerology. It's not really a thing for me. But in this movie, I found it completely engrossing. I really, really dug it. And I'm not the only one. This movie was a critical success. I got a lot of praise. It was a financial success too. It only cost 135 grand or something like that. So it was not an expensive movie. And it made a few $1,000,000. And then of course, it really found its following with people like in home video and things like that. So it feels like maybe it's kind of disappeared a little bit now, even though Aronofsky is still an A-list director. And I feel like people don't talk about Pi as much as it did during the first few years when it had come out, but it deserves to be talked about. It is a really excellent movie that is doing some really fascinating things. It is a wonderful debut by an excellent director. And if you just want to see somebody, a master filmmaker, just getting his feet underneath him and doing some really impressive things without being tremendously showy about it, this is a great, great debut. And it's a really great one to start. But also, if you're just like really interested in like an intellectual thriller, something really smart that is also going to thrill you and keep you engaged, this might be the one for you. This is a really, really intriguing, captivating, engrossing movie, even though it is hard to understand. Again, if you're a mathematician, let me know. Is it easier to understand for a mathematician, or is it still pretty out there? Because I have a feeling it might still be out there even if you know the math. But even if you don't, I think you can enjoy this movie quite a bit, and I think you should enjoy this movie. If you've seen it, let me know what you think in the comments. But if you haven't seen it, check out Pi, give it a chance, and then come back and let me know what you think, because I have a feeling you might dig it. So that's our doctorate level selection for the obsession horror subgenre. But of course, I've got an extra credit selection for you as well. And this is one that I've been wanting to talk about for some time now, because this is a movie that I actually love. The extra credit selection I want to talk to you about is The Fan. And The Fan came out in 1996. And it's directed by Tony Scott, who's really known more for like action type movies, things like Top Gun and things like that. True Romance maybe, but also he did do The Hunger, which we talked about on the channel before, which is a fantastic movie. So Tony Scott, pretty well known, but is a mainstream director, and this is a mainstream type movie, which makes things kind of interesting. But we're gonna get into all of that in just a second. First, if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a Major League Baseball team getting a new player on their team who is struggling all of a sudden. Even though he's a very high profile, high paid, famous, good player, he's starting to struggle. And an obsessed fan of the San Francisco Giants, his new team, is getting pretty upset about things and is determined to do whatever it takes to make sure that this guy gets on track and starts hitting again. And whatever it takes may involve getting some people hurt, and hijinks may be starting to abound. We're going to stop there and not spoil the movie for you, but this movie is pretty wild in no small part because it is a baseball movie and it is using real baseball teams. And that is one of the best things about this movie for somebody like me who not only loves horror movies, but loves baseball movies. This is a very specific audience, I think. If you love baseball and horror, this might be the movie for you. It's definitely the movie for me. And this is a mainstream movie. It's kind of the weird thing. Again, we got another situation where maybe it's arguably more thriller than horror. I think a lot of people would probably say so. And if I'm being perfectly honest, it starts out more like a thriller drama almost, because it does take a little while before the hijinks kick in. It's a long time before anybody gets killed or anything like that. So it takes a little while to go there. But the baseball aspects of this movie really engage me. Again, if you're a baseball fan, this is really going to be for you. If not, you might still be into it because it's got a really good pedigree. It's got a really strong cast. Again, Tony Scott being the director, famous director. But then you've got Robert De Niro and you've got Wesley Snipes. You've got Benicio del Toro, Ellen Barkin, John Leguizamo. You've got a couple of Twin Peaks veterans in there. Don Davis, Chris Mulkey's in there. Jack Black's got a little cameo, small appearance before he was famous. And everybody in here doing really good work. Everybody's good in this movie. And it really adds a lot to it. Now, Wesley Snipes is giving a great performance as the Barry Bonds-esque, cocky, arrogant superstar player who's worth $40 million, which is hilarious today, but back in the 90s would have been a very expensive contract. And Robert De Niro is stealing the show here as Gil, the obsessed fan, who really dials into what an obsessed fan looks like, because early on, like I said, it's really doing more baseball stuff than horror stuff, and the baseball details are spot on. Like I said, all the teams are real teams, the logos, the correct logos, ballparks are real ballparks, so it's real baseball you're talking about here, and even some cameos by like famous people in there. Although, side note, MLB didn't particularly love the script and the violence and the cursing in the script is like that. So there were some like player cameos that were playing at the time that were supposed to be in the movie. I guess they got cut out because the San Francisco Giants and Major League Baseball didn't particularly love what was going on there. But I do feel that the verisimilitude is here. The fact that they're using all real stuff really makes this movie much more engaging, much more engrossing. And then, like I was saying, Robert De Niro really nailing this obsessed fan idea. I hate to say this, but I feel like true fans of baseball will identify with him. How he's like a little too realistic. He really is so engaged in his team, the way he like kind of focuses on them and gets so wrapped up in their performance to the exclusion of his family, his child in particular, his job. Everything else is like secondary to the team. And it seems like it's ludicrous, but it's a little too realistic. It's a little scary how he is the annoying fan that people don't like in the stands, right? Cursing at people, standing and getting in the way, just really, fighting people for a ball that gets out in the stands. Like all this stuff that people see if you go to the ballpark, and I do a lot, you see this stuff. It's a very realistic performance. Like I said, you've got Wesley Snipes playing a very fun Barry Bonds-like character, and he's doing a really good job with it. And then you've got Robert De Niro kind of playing something a little too close to home, really, honestly, a little bit too realistic for me. And it works. And I'm super engaged in this, even though, like I said, it takes a little while to get to the real horror aspects of this. Because the movie is admittedly a little bit ludicrous in terms of a plot, right? Or is it, right? You've got this obsessed fan he's willing to basically kill to make sure that his team is winning. And that seems ridiculous, but then we've seen crazy fans. I'm thinking about Monica Seles at this point, like getting stabbed on the court. Like, it happens. The fans get a little carried away. And what I like about this is that it's dialing into things that are very uniquely sports or even uniquely baseball. Like, the superstition aspect of this is front and center of the movie. All the superstitions that fans have about baseball and how they think they influence the game, There's stuff like that is in this movie, and it works. It makes a lot of sense. It does feel more natural that the Gil character winds up going to the places he goes to because of how much he believes in this kind of stuff, and how much Wesley Snipes' character Bobby Rayburn feels about like things like not being able to wear his own number, and that's maybe why it's hurting his performance, because he's superstitious about that. These things are working for me. Again, as a baseball fan, this is all stuff that I'm familiar with. It's kind of speaking my language, so I don't mind so much that it's taking a little while to get going in the horror aspect. And once it does, it gets pretty fun, but it is admittedly, again, very late in the movie. And look, I'm going to admit, like, it's not the most flawless of movies. Like I said, it takes a little while to get going in terms of the horror stuff. And if you're not a baseball fan, you're not going to be digging it as much. The music's mostly good, but they really overuse that Nine Inch Nails song a lot. Okay, there's a lot of use of that music. So look, I'm aware of the fact that it's not that fun. I understand why the reviews of this movie aren't great. I understand why it wasn't a big box office hit. It's a weird sell. Horror and baseball is not the biggest sell. If there was, I would have a whole different channel if there was more baseball horror. But I understand why it flopped. I understand why people don't like it that much. I love it. And I admit that Nexus might be a little too niche for people. It might not be for everybody. If you don't give a rat's butt about baseball, I don't know if you'll follow this one. I don't know if you have the patience for it. But if you like baseball, or if you just like sports, because I think a lot of the stuff that's in here is universal to sports and not just unique to baseball. I think if you like sports and you like horror, this one's going to scratch that itch for you. It's a really good one. Again, the performances are great across the board. All the actors in here are really, really good. And so if you just like these actors, it might be worth seeing it for that. And I do like the way it ends up. I do think it gets pretty crazy at the end. It goes off the rails. It really does get ludicrous in the best fun way by the end of the movie. But I acknowledge, if you're not a baseball fan, it may have a hard time grabbing you early on, but if you stuck with it, you might enjoy it till the end. So give it a chance if you haven't seen it, especially if you like sports, and then let me know what you think. And if you have seen it, let me know what you think as well, because this one seems to have gotten forgotten. People don't talk about it very much, but I wanted to talk about it. So here's why we're talking about it. So that's going to do it for our Obsession Redux, going back and reviewing what we've done previously and checking out some new movies. And I really like both these movies a lot. So please give them a chance, give them your time. I do think it's worth your time. And then let me know what you think of them, because I would love to hear your thoughts. I don't see people talking about these movies as much, so I'd love to talk about them with you guys. But right now, let's talk about a Horror Trivia Pursuit card. It's that time of the video where I like to read a question from my cards live on camera. Never talked about it before, seen it before, and then hopefully answer it and hopefully get it right and not embarrass myself. So, since we're talking about obsession, we're going to talk about the psychological category of the card. Makes sense, right? So here's our question. Who was the screenwriter of 1978's Magic? I'm going to be honest with you guys, off the top of my head, I do not know the answer to this question. I am familiar with the movie. We did talk about it on the channel not too long ago, but not terribly recently either. And it's a killer ventriloquist dummy movie. It's Anthony Hopkins. It's a great flick. It's really fun. I've heard rumors that they're doing a remake of this. I can't remember who it was who was involved in this, but supposedly they're doing a remake of this. That I wasn't thinking this movie needs a remake, because the original holds up extremely well. But the pedigree behind the remake was interesting to me, but I can't remember right now who it is. So maybe leave in the comments if you remember who was the person who's doing the remake of Magic. But we did talk about the original. It is a pretty wild movie. It's pretty out there. Anthony Hopkins' performance in particular is really great in this movie, which is part of why I don't feel like a remake would be necessary. But again, I was open to it. I can't remember why I was open to it, but I was open to it. Anyways, here's the thing. I do not remember who directed this, and I do not remember who wrote it. And so I'm going to be taking kind of a shot in the dark. And you know, if you guys know, great. If not, you're going to have to take a shot in the dark with me as well. It's been far too long since I watched this movie, far too long since we covered it on the channel for me to remember these details. But I have an idea, and it is a complete shot in the dark. So lock in your answer. I'm going to lock in mine. Okay. So my answer is going to be Ray Bradbury, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because he's really more known for sci-fi and stuff like that. But the whole angle with the doll and stuff like this does kind of feel like maybe it could kind of go that route. And I don't know if it's just because I have Ray Bradbury in that, because he wrote something we talked about recently on the channel. And I don't know if that's just why it's in my head, but that's what comes to mind. So I'm just going with it because I have absolutely no idea. And the card says William Goldman. William Goldman, who I always remember the name. I can never remember. I think he did Princess Bride amongst many other things. He's pretty well known. So William Goldman's the answer there. I did not get that right, obviously. Did you get it right? Did you know William Goldman wrote Magic? Maybe some of you did, because I know it's a pretty popular movie. It's got that cult love, and some of you really love that movie. Let me know in the comments if you got that right. And if you got it wrong, who'd you guess? Let me know if you guessed somebody like me. Did you guess Ray Bradbury, or do you think that's ridiculous? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know if you think about other Obsession movies that I should be checking out. I have seen the new movie Obsession that's out in the theaters right now, and we will probably wind up talking about that at some point in the future. But until then, I'm just going to say, class dismissed.